So first of all, like there's a good news that Skilled Inspirational Academy and NetMinions are together now, and like I welcome all the students who joined from both the institutions. So it's a good news. We are one team now. So moving to today in F5 demo. Okay, we'll start with the the course outline. Basically, what we will cover throughout the DNS training and the lab setup which we have. So let me share this course outline to you all. So this is the course outline. Okay, and this will be a weekend class, Saturday, Sunday, spread across 6 to 7 weeks, and
Can you
having
start the
approx
recording,
20.
please?
I've started it, I guess, Karan.
I can see.
One second.
Yes, now it's started. Thank you.
Great. Welcome. So, okay, so starting with the course outline and the lab setup first. So, this spreads across 6 to 7 weekends and having around 26 hours of, like total training. And obviously, online mode would be there. And at last, you will be getting recording or recorded session of all those, like modules or the content which we will cover. So, I I can see that most of you know about the LTM, so that would be easier for you to grasp the GTM concept. So the outline basically covers around like 10 chapters. Okay, where we will having like big IP system setup. We'll start with the lab setup. Okay, how you basically connect your big IP into the infra and provision the modules like LTM and GTMs. Then introduction about the DNS and the big IP DNS or GTM. So just to inform you that GTM has changed now. So they have changed the name of big IP GTM to big IP DNS, but you can call it interchangeably, either big IP DNS or big IP GTM. So we'll be seeing the difference between the DNS and the big IP GTM. We'll see then around how do we accelerate DNS resolution through the GTM. Okay, so there we will cover about like the DNS cache, DNS Express, okay, and some kind of resolution of the DNS queries via the John records and everything, including the GSLVs, wide IPs and all. And then again, like there is a thing called Intelligent DNS Resolution, which is why we are studying GTM at the first place. So you know GTM is very intelligent in terms of the DNS resolution, so you can pretty much do any kind of like DNS resolution with the help of wide IPs. Okay, and as we all know that like GSLB is a like a super feature of the GTM, so we will explore that. Then we'll see about the probes and the matrices, or you can say probes in other term as a monitors. So that will be there. Then we will be having like load balancing again of the how many types of load balance we have, a static or dynamic. So we will explore those things. Then again the monitorings, and then we will see like the logs and the notifications, like how many log levels are there, where those files will be like stored and everything. And then some advanced topics like DNS securities. Okay, the DNS sync groups, how can you like keep all those all the GTMs in your environment in a single sync group, okay, so that they can like configure in an active manner. So then there is something called DNS 64, so or 64, which means like IPv4 to v6 and v4 to v6 and 6 to 4. So that we will cover. At last, we will also prepare for the interview question answers. Okay, so if you are looking for some like what you say, a change or something, then we will provide you some assistance regarding the interview, what kind of interview questions you will get. And then there will be a benefit of lifetime assistance for interview and real time troubleshooting. Suppose in your environment you are getting some issues with the GTM, then you can reach out to us anytime. And like, so all these things will be covered over 6 to 7 weekends. Okay. And talking about the lab now, so everyone will be
Ashish,
getting lab access. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Will you
Yeah.
also cover the troubleshooting part also?
Yeah, obviously. So I'll share some, like real time or from my experience, like what kind of issues you might get. Okay, and if you have something in your scenario or in your environment which you are trying to discuss or resolve, then we can do that over here. So definitely we'll touch that also, troubleshooting. And regarding the lab now, each and everyone will be getting lab. Okay, so let me share the lab topology. This is the lab topology. Okay, are you able to see?
Yes, we can see.
We can see.
Yeah, so basically we have simulated two data centers on our lab. Okay, as you can see that this router is basically segregating two data centers. So once again, so this one, let me start the sketch. So suppose this is your, one second, and this is your data center one. Okay, and this will be your data center two. So we are basically simulating two data centers. Okay, and in each data center we have a pair of like big IP devices which we will provision to the GTM and LT modules. Similarly, in other data center we have pair of F5 big IP devices along with Linux servers which we will use as a backend nodes. Okay, and this is our like a gateway router which is segregating like DC1 and DC2, and this is our management workstation from where we will do all kind of stuff. And each and everyone will be getting these like what do you say, access to this particular lab. Okay, so you can do your labs according to your ease. Any questions so far with regard to topology or anything?
So separate account would be created for everyone, and we will have a lab topology like this. We have created the same scenario as production, and
Yeah.
this is like that. So we will
And
have to
also
understand this.
right. Also, you will be getting a setup manual. So, like how to set up, like routing between the core switches, gateway router, and other data centers. So, you will be
So this is
provided
basic
a lab
topology.
setup.
So
Very
once
basic.
you, so this is basic topology. So once you enroll with us, you will get all lab setup, and we will tell you how routing and switching works.
Right.
So any questions? Let's make it interactive. So if you have any
Yeah.
questions, you can ask.
The purpose of this demo is to make it interactive. Okay. So, if you have any questions, any like like what you say, thought that okay, how hard it is to learn GTM and anything, most welcome. Okay. So please shoot out. So
Uh,
regarding this topology,
One question I have related to this design. So,
yeah,
Big IP is
Your voice is
there.
not clear. Can you be loud?
Yeah.
your voice is breaking.
So, yeah, is it fine now?
Yeah, it's
Little
better.
bit.
Yeah, let me speak. Actually, I'm not using the earphone because of some technical issues. Anyway, so my question is here, like related to will we get the same lab setup whichever you are showing in
Yes.
your
Yes, you
presentation?
will get the
Definitely.
same setup. It will be on cloud. It's a remote setup. You will get access. You will get your credentials. It will be 45 days access, and you will get the same setup which is shown in this picture. We will not hide anything. You can ask n number of questions. If you have doubts, which topic will cover? Do you will cover this? Will you cover this?
Right.
You can ask anytime. But the laptop
Okay, so
topology would be same.
is this your big IP DNS or is this your big IP LTM?
So we will be, basically provisioning both on
So
the very
Asif,
same machine.
you can tell them that big IP1 and big IP3 would be, so big IP1 and big IP3 would be acting as your DNS, would be active. Every big IP would have both LTM and DNS configured in do.
Yeah.
So we
Okay,
will discuss active scenario, we will discuss active standby scenario also.
okay, yeah. Thank you.
Any other question, Indu?
No, no,
Okay,
thanks.
you can continue. AI.
Yeah. Anyone? Any questions regarding the lab topology or lab access?
Iqbal, I have one question.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it possible to learn like how to upgrade the GTM, like records, all the things?
Sorry.
So Iqbal,
Upgrade.
so uh, he's asking like, suppose if you upgrade GTM,
Yeah.
will
What are
you
the
tell what are the steps? It will be cover. So we have already done upgrade. So we will tell you like what are the prerequisites, how you can
Mhm.
upgrade the device. So it will be covered. So we will show
So
you
if
like
it is right, if it is related to the firmware upgrade, so certainly will help you out. Okay, so any
Yeah,
FI box can be updated to the any firmware,
correct, correct.
right?
Because when you upgrade
Yes.
GTM, right, what are the precautions to be taken, and
Yeah.
how we
good
can
question,
upgrade?
Anji. Good question.
Good.
So it will be covered.
Okay.
It will be covered.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
hey guys, one more question. Sorry, sorry.
No worries. Go ahead.
Uh, yeah, once that 45 days period would be over, is there any way or chance that we can set up a same type of topology in our Eve environment, or would you guys
Right.
help
You
us
can
to
set up.
establish?
Good question. You can set up, but you need good RAM, like 32 GB RAM, because you need two GTM boxes provisioned with LTM box. So you need a good laptop, but you can set up on EVNG. It's possible because F5 provide you 30 days license. They can
Mhm.
provide you 3 days license, and you can do it. But you need a good set laptop, like IA5 8th generation with 32 GB RAM. If it's not 32 GB RAM, then it's little difficult.
Mm. Sorry, brother, I forgot your name. I think I just interacted with you in the past.
Yes, this is
Uh,
from Skilled Inspirational Academy. My name is Vidit.
with it, yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So me and Asif work together. So GTM will be delivered by him, and I will clear the doubts sometimes. So we will be delivering together. So I want to make this session as interactive.
No,
Since
no,
Asif has
I
15 years experience, so he will
no,
be
good man.
delivering this session.
No, no, fair enough. Yeah, we do have a faith in you guys. Please continue.
Yeah.
I
So
have one
I,
question. I have
yeah.
one. Why don't we have any PC? I mean, client PC in this topology? So we
So
will.
this is your client PC workstation.
Workstation is
Okay.
your client PC.
Client PC. From here you can access these devices. Okay, and do everything.
So how, when you will configure this, so how we will generate the traffic from this PC only?
Right.
Yes. So you have to, like configure few things. Like once you set up the lab, like, you have to add routes of, like the VLANs and the, other stuffs. According to that, you will, after that, you will be able to access, like everything. So you have to, like add routes on that client PC to access everything.
Okay.
Also, you will be having internet connectivity to that PC. So suppose you want to, license your big IP device, so you don't have to, like go out of that workstation. You can do it directly from there.
Okay. Got it. Got it. Thank you.
Asif, will you also cover the like how we'll set up our lab in Eve environment or any in our laptop
uh,
or something?
so this is a cloud-based, lab. So you just need a browser, Firefox, okay, or Internet Edge. From there you can access it anytime, right? So
Then
if you
Ajay,
need
you
it,
can replicate. You
right,
can
if you need
replicate.
it on personal laptop, then you have to replicate this thing, right?
Oh,
So this is totally cloud based. You having a public IP and you can just access it. That's it.
okay,
You
fine.
don't have to here. You don't have to buy a new laptop or kind of thing. But again, so if you want to simulate on your personal laptop, your resources have to be, great, right? Like 32 GB RAM, as Karan said.
Asif, so we require a dedicated device for the running the LTM or GTM, or we just simply run the iOS image on the VM machine, or both
So every
way.
all the, nodes which you are able to see right now are VMs. Okay, and we have, like running iOS email on of big IP Linux server, everything. So it's a
So
sandboxing
all
one.
are virtual. So one.
All are virtual. Okay,
Okay.
So you just
and
download an image, ISO image from F5 website. We will share the link,
Okay.
and then you can just upload and you can start it.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, yeah, you
Uh,
can continue now. Otherwise, we can take questions later on also.
Yeah, all right. So, okay, so course outline is clear, lab setup is clear. So now, so this will be our slide, okay, which we will cover throughout the course, right? So few things, as this is a demo class, so I would like to, make it more interactive, and I'll, have some topic, like discussed over here. So let's start with the, the what is DNS first, right? So basically DNS is a, like a domain name system, okay, by which you can basically resolve IP to name and name to IP, right? So when we, one second. So DNS is basically, based on a hierarchical distributed system. It is a, if you imagine of a Unix file system, you can see a tree starting from a root folder. Similarly, in the DNS, you can start from a root, right? So let me show you this. So, okay. So this is the DNS tree structure, okay, where everything starts from, like root, which is a dot, and these are the top level domains, TLDs, which we say, com, edu, net, or gov. And similarly, we have like, second level domain or third level domain like F5 tech and so on, right? So DNS is basically used for IP to name and name to IP resolution. Okay. So there are, like suppose you don't have any idea, but you want to check the IP of, FQDN like www.facebook.com or something. You can do it from your machine by running, like tools like NSLOOKUP and dig. So if you're using Windows machine, you can use NSLOOKUP. If you're using like, Linux, then you can use dig. Okay. So DNS is basically, like it's been there since very beginning. Okay, so that's why we are able to, communicate to the end our web pages or end servers, okay, with the name instead of an IP. So what is the difference between DNS and the GTM? You might be wondering, like, okay, fine, since we have DNS, so why we need GTM? What GTM is doing? So let me explain this now. So DNS and GTM are doing the same thing, right? Both are resolving the DNS queries, but there are some, like, drawback of legacy DNS, which is like, so in legacy DNS, we have only one load balancing, like method, okay, which is called round robin. Okay, so there is no intelligence in the standard DNS or the legacy DNS. Okay, instead in GTM is an intelligent device or DNS. Intelligent DNS or device, you can say, means it supports more than, like one load balancing mechanism, which is, like a round robin. Okay, then we have like, ratios, then we have list connections, etc. Okay, but in DNS we don't have any other, like load balancing other than round robin. Also, like DNS cannot monitor your backend, like resources. So it cannot basically, monitor. So no monitoring or probes. Okay. Whereas we have, like monitors and probes available in GTM. Okay. Third point, DNS is, like basically, like if you want to do some kind of resolution based on the geolocation or topology, suppose you are sitting in US and the resources are in like uh, Asia region, so that kind of intelligence DNS doesn't have, right? So no geolocation resolution is available, whereas in GTM you have like geolocation or topology based like resolutions. Okay, so in a nutshell, like GTM has much more functionality than your legacy DNS. Okay,
So guys, everyone
so
here, every company asks this question, so you need
yeah,
to understand this.
understand this is very important. Like why you need GTM, since they are doing the same thing, resolution, but GTM is doing intelligently. So any questions so far, like between the differences?
So in a nutshell, you can tell them it's like availability load balance. So availability, as
Yeah,
Asif told you, that
yeah.
availability.
Availability, and again you can say global server load balancing. Okay, so
Your service will be available
availability,
when one DNS is down. Even
exactly.
one
Uh,
DNS,
uh,
you don't
yeah,
have that feature.
okay. That feature. So no GSLB is there.
And another thing is
So
DDoS protection. There is no DDoS protection in normal DNS. You cannot protect
again,
your
yeah,
DNS.
no, like security of your zone files or any, like domains. But in GTM, you can configure the security based on your zone files and the domains. So again, you can, like easily see that, GTM is very much capable of doing, lots of things like, encryption of your zone files, like then load balancing of DNS request based on the locations wherever you are in the world. It can probe the monitor so that you cannot feel that your site is down and you're not getting any kind of 404 or something errors, right? And again, it's very intelligent. It has so many load balancing mechanisms. So obviously nowadays GTM is very much preferable over DNS. So
Even in cloud also, guys, DNS is required. Even if you are going into cloud, DNS will be required everywhere because it's a name resolution.
I
So
think it's very common these days. So everything which you are, like accessing through your browser is certainly having a DNS thing involved in between, or DNS server involved in between, right? So you cannot just, like ignore DNS when you are, like building your data center or like any application or anything. Okay, whether it's a greenfield or a brownfield. The best part is that you can introduce GTM in your existing infrastructure without breaking anything. You can migrate legacy DNS to the GTM. Okay, you can migrate from Cisco ACE or any other, like DNS servers like Infoblox to GTM. So these kind of things you can easily do. Okay. So any questions in terms of like differences? One more thing, I will be covering these things in more detail once we start the course. Okay. So in demo, I'm just giving you a, like what to say, a bird's eye view.
What will be the role of internal GTM and external GTM here in this case?
Okay. So good question. So internal GTM is same. So it's all about where you are placing your GTM, whether after the firewall or like before the firewall. So if you are deploying this particular GTM into your external perimeter network where you have your, like you can say like DMZ. Okay, so all the external DNS request will be going to your external GTM. Okay, and suppose you only want internal clients or internal user to use that particular DNS or GTM to resolve to the their to resolve their DNS queries, you can just deploy that particular thing into your internal perimeter network. Okay, so basically, like it's all about the positioning of the device, where you are positioning, like in the DMZ or in the external facing environment, or in the whether it's in the internal facing environment. So still they are doing the resolutions. So a very good like working example is that suppose you have an application, okay, in your internal environment, okay, and you want to you want only internal client to access accept one client from external. So how do you achieve that? So in that case you can do some kind of translation, okay, you can do some kind of what do you say, a DNS resolution by internal GTM, but again you have to open some like firewall rules, right, and do a minimal extra or minimal configuration on your GTM, so that external user can also access to internal what do you say, resources using the internal GTM, and vice versa also. So it depends like how you are positioning the GTM and where.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so now let's start the differences between LT and GTM. So I can see pretty much everybody knows about the LTM. So I guess it would be easy for everyone to understand. So LTM, what is LTM and what is GTM? Okay, they are not two boxes. Okay, they are just modules. Okay, which you have to provision on your big IP appliance, right? So suppose you have a big IP 1600 appliance, so you can make it GTM, you can make it LTM. It's not like client F5 is selling GTM as a dedicated box. No, it's all about the licenses and the provisioning. Okay, so whenever you hear a word or term like load balancer, so load balancer is basically like LTM. So because see all the load balancing things for the suppose you are accessing a application, okay, and which is configured on three host backend nodes or host, okay. So when client is coming to the LTM is doing the real load balancing of your like the for your application traffic. But what GTM is doing, GTM is also doing load balancing, but it is doing the load balancing of the DNS queries. This is not doing the load balancing of your application traffic. I hope
This
this
is
is
very
clear.
important. This is very
Right,
important.
try to understand. So whenever from my experience, everybody says okay, GTM is also a load balancer. No, load balancing means it's application traffic. When you are having application traffic which is doing or getting load balanced, then certainly it is being done by the LTM. And if you have DNS queries being load balanced, then certainly it's an GTM. Okay, so LTM and GTM are very much diverse. Okay, and LTM is local traffic manager, GTM is global traffic manager. You can do the load balancing of load balancing of DNS queries. Okay,
We could say like load balancing between two or multiple data centers, which I think.
that is about the deployment and about the like how you want to how you want GTM to resolve the DNS queries. But again,
Yeah.
GTM is only doing load balancing for DNS queries. So suppose you are coming for a site called www.facebook.com. So for facebook.com, GTM will provide you an IP, right? It will not get you connected to the facebook.com server. That will be taken care by the LTM. Okay. And once GTM hand over you the IP of the facebook.com, that IP could be IP of your LTM web, where you have real load balancer of the Facebook servers or backend servers
You mean to say that
in
the
the
next
pool.
request, you mean to say like the next request will directly traverse to the LTM rather than going to the GTM?
So yeah, so GTM is just doing a resolution. I will explain that flow. Okay, for sure. But yeah, so just think of it that you are doing load balancing of DNS query via GTM, and load balancing of application traffic. Okay. LTM, they both can be provisioned on the same box or on individual, right? So again, what you say here, we configured WIP, right? Here we configure wide IP, okay, or sometimes WIP. Okay, LTM is basically like can be added as server object on GTM. Okay, GTM can have multiple. Sorry for the bad handwriting. So GTM can have multiple, like LTM associated for the DNS resolution. So this point is clear.
Right.
Okay. So suppose in your environment you have five, or suppose within two data center you have two LTMs. In each data center, overall you have four LTMs. So you can, like associate all those four LTMs on your GTM. Okay, and that can be done via iQuery, which we will certainly explore later. So you can add LTM as a server object on GTM, right? And since we all know that GTM, like can be, like what do you say, can be integrated with. If you are not having GTM in your environment, it can be, like getting DNS query resolved via AD and then it's coming to the LTM. So LTM can work standard. It's not mandatory to have LTM and GTM. Okay, for DNS resolution and the load balancing. So if you're not having GTM, then think of it as your legacy DNS is doing the resolution, DNS resolution, and sending it to the LTM.
In any
Okay,
case, whenever you access any website, it should first go
any
to
website,
DNS.
it DNS. So it could be GTM, it could be your local DNS or legacy DNS. So
One query I have, Asif,
yeah, yeah.
do we need a separate physical device to configure these two features, or we can
Uh,
configure this?
I've told you at the very beginning that you don't have to, buy, or you don't have to have, like a standalone device for each module. So you just need licenses. So suppose you are running Big IP 3900, okay, appliance. You have a appliance with nothing in it. You just buy license for LTM and GTM. You can just do the licensing, provision that particular box with LTM only or GTM only or LTM and GTM. Okay, so they are not hardware appliances. LTM, like we have switches, like Nexus switches, Nexus 7K or 9K. They are physical appliances, right? So unlike this in F5, like we have appliance of different models like 3900, 1600, and Viprions also, cloud-based devices also. So there you have to have only licenses to, you know, enable these
So
features.
you just
That's it.
need a license. So whenever you call
Yeah.
F5, suppose you customer comes to you, customer requests you like I need to implement GTM right now. So you just need to request F5 that I need a license to provision both LTM and GTM. So it's a feature, it's not a device. So you have a F5
Yeah.
with
Right.
different license. That's it.
Right. And not only LTM, GTM, I have, like in my environment, I have seen that we have LTM, GTM, ASN, APM, all are on the very same box. Okay, only you need licenses. Just license them and provision them. That's it. You have that feature enabled and you are using all those, like modules.
Okay, okay, got it.
Right. So it's all about licenses. If you are having box and you're not having licenses, then you won't be able to provision GTM on your box. So
So Asif, in which case the dedicated box is used in data center and in other another scenario, which case the simply running the iOS image on the VMware machine. It means
okay, again, see, we have different platforms of Big IP. Okay, cloud platforms, right? So there you just go on to whether AWS or Azure, do the stuff. that will be your cloud-based load balancer, right?
Yes.
We have appliances like hardware, basically, like one rack unit or two rack unit devices. Okay, so you have to just those are physical devices. There you have to buy the license and license them and provision them and use that. Also we have like virtual editions as well, right? Where you are suppose having like ESXi in your environment. You have created one ESXi host and like created some VMs, and there you just need an iOS image. Again, for production you need a license. Created a VM, you just license it like we are doing in our lab, or like on your personal laptop. What we are doing basically, you just open a workstation, or basically a VMware workstation, and there create a VM, put the iOS image, and then you need a license, and you can boot it up as a GTM, LTM, ASM, APM, whatever you like. So there are few, what you say, platforms. Also, there is one more platform which is called Viprion, which is a chassis-based, device. There you can insert, like several blades into the chassis. Okay, so like we have in our Nexus. So there are basically four kinds of platform: cloud, virtual editions, uh, uh, hardware appliance, and Viprion. All right.
Okay.
So
Okay.
this Wipron is also a hardware model, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
But it's
So
a
there,
chassis based. Yeah.
yeah, hardware, but it's a chassis based hardware.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
okay,
Like
and
our
there,
Nexus. Yeah.
right there we have feature called VCMPs, right? So suppose you have a device where you have like a four blade device, but you are running only one blade. So you can have like at least 20 LTMs configured on that particular blade. Okay, individually, right? So each particular each LTMs will be acting as a dedicated box for the client, for the like customers. So there we have a feature called VCMPs, virtual cluster multi processing. So it's a different thing, but again, there also you can like provision
It is
LTM,
a
GTM,
similar
SM.
like Nexus 7K. We call as a VDC, virtual
Yeah,
device controller.
yeah, you are pretty much right there. But again, VDC is, like as VDC is for dedicated customer, you can get multiple VDCs, right? And running there, like VRFs for customers within that VDC. So similarly here, you can have one box. So it's for scalability and like for cost, what is the savings. So basically, you are saving some money, and also it's very much scalable. So suppose you are having a customer base increasing, so you can just insert another blade into the chassis. You can like have another 20 LTMs or any device. So that is a scalable. So that's why like client goes for that particular options as well. So okay, any question from LTM GTM kind of like comparison?
Uh, okay, going bit forward, Asif. So
Mm-hmm.
those it means creating any records in the DNS. Okay, and any sticky session, JSON session, all this thing comes under the GTM part only. Am I correct?
Right. So again, for DNS, suppose like www.fb.com. Okay, what is this? This is a FQDN, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for this, suppose you don't have GTM. So for this, you somewhere on the internet there will be a DNS server where you might have records for them, www.fb.com, and some IP addresses, right? So you can do that kind of thing on the GTM. So you can replace the DNS, legacy DNS on GTM. So anything related to the DNS, like record creation, zone creation, domain creation, anything you can run on the GTM, right?
Okay.
So you cannot occasion, okay, but you can do anything in terms of DNS. Whatever you are doing on a legacy DNS, you can do it here, but plus you have other features as well. which is not available on the Windows server or like other stuff,
Linux servers.
Linux servers. So okay, one more thing. So just to let you know, these F5 boxes or like TMSs are written on Linux. Okay, Linux distro known as CentOS. Okay, so if you know like Linux or CentOS, then you can pretty much do anything with the command line. So it's written on CentOS Linux. Okay,
So if you
so
know little bit Linux, so
then
it would be
Linux
helpful to
helpful for
troubleshoot.
troubleshoot and yeah, do the CLI stuffs. Okay, so I've seen so many people that they are not aware of like like whether it's running Linux or Windows or what kind of operating system or kernel it is having. So it is a Linux-based machine running CentOS distro. Okay.
Okay, Asif, so one question from my side. So GTM, when it is getting the DNS query, so as you mentioned, it's doing load balancing for those DNS queries.
DS queries.
Yeah.
Right.
So how it is doing that? Like, will it have a backend server like LTM, or
Right.
or it is doing this load balancing on its own? How is it
No,
doing that?
so I've written this third point. LTM can be added as a server object, or can be, or it has to be added. So when you add LTM on your GTM, GTM have a functionality to auto discover all your LTM virtual web. Okay, so whenever you are creating some kind of wide IP or any kind of record, you can have visibility of all the virtual server configured on your LTM. So now your web will be like given as a DNS response. Okay, so suppose fb.com has a wide IP created on your GTM, and that GTM is having a virtual server for fb.com. So you will be getting a IP of virtual server configured on your LTM. Then client will, once client have that IP address, it will directly contact LTM.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll show you one like
You can show
let me
us
share
the
that.
picture.
Yeah. Let me, yeah. So it was quite interactive. So okay, so are you able to see my screen? So this slide.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is client. Okay, step one. So it is trying to access pww. First, any idea, anyone?
Guys, please answer this.
Please answer. Yeah, be vocal. Okay, and
It will check
It
the
will
local
go to the
cache.
that way
local
I need
DNS.
right.
You check in the local DNS cache.
It will check the local DNS cache. One answer.
Yes.
Another. Anyone else?
Or any other DNS server, local DNS server, or the Google DNS server.
Google. Okay. Okay. Fine. First, a client will check its own cache and the host file. Suppose you have a host file entered for www.f5.com on your client machine itself. So it won't go to the local DNS. It will get an answer from there only, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So keep in mind. So it's a interview question, guys. Okay. So everybody says, okay, we'll check the local DNS cache. It will do, but first it will check its own cache and the resolver cache we say, okay, or host file. Okay. Then if you are not having any entry in there, it will go to second step. You can see it will go to the local DNS. It could be your own DNS, in-house DNS, ISP DNS, or anything which you have given there, right? So it will send that request to local DNS. Get me this thing www.f5.com. I don't have answer to this particular FQDN. So now local DNS will check its own cache. Okay, whether I have any cache entry for this, right? Getting, guys? Just be with me. So it will check its own cache. Okay, if it has resolved like recently, then it will give you from there only. It won't do any other like a steps. It won't perform any other steps, right? So if not, then what it will do, local DNS will say, okay, fine, I don't have I don't have answer. Let me check with the root. Root is a so every FQDN, every URL, or every site name has a dot appended at the last, which is invisible to us. So after .com, there is a dot at last, which is called root. Okay. So let me.
So there are around 13 root servers all over world, so which are authoritative, so which are
Yeah,
called
third,
root servers.
and plus then there has been a new addition to those 13. So it might be, if you check now, there will be around 16. I've recently seen somewhere. Earlier it was 13, but now it has been increased, I guess.
Oh, okay, okay.
So okay, so this is your client. Okay, and client is going to LDNS. So client is querying the LDNS. Okay, if it is not having any answer to itself. So this is called recursive query. Okay, it will be explained later. So now LDNS is saying that, okay, fine, I don't have answer to www.f5.com. Okay, so LDNS will say, okay, fine, let me check root. Okay, root. So there is a .com appended at last. So this box is started as a root. Okay. So it will forward the very same thing, www.f5.com. Okay, root, get me this address to this particular FQDN. Root will say, fine, I don't know the answer, but I can give you a referral. Okay. So now if you look at the slide here, so fourth point, root is saying, okay, go to this one, 100.1.1.1, right? So now it is giving a referral to LDNS. Now LDNS will do another query to this particular IP address, 10.1.1, which is a .com server, parsed from right to left. Okay. So on .com server will check its cache, everything, right? And it will say, fine, I don't know the where it is located, but I can give you another referral where you can check. So it will provide another referral, that is 150.10.10.53. Now again, same thing. LDNS will make a query to f5.com now. Okay. Now it is hitting that f5.com name server, which is 150.10.10.10.53. Now this f5.com has an entry, a record for the f9.4.32. Okay. Now this 5.com server will provide answer to LDNS. Now LDNS say to client that I have the answer to your query, have this. So in ninth step, it is saying that 216.34.94.32 is given to the client. So okay, now what we have done so far is just resolve the query, right? We have not accessed the real server. Okay, guys, so just keep this in mind. Don't think that you are getting a page from this IP. You are just getting an IP address for that name. So it just happened in milliseconds, but okay, these many things are happens. Millions of servers out there. Okay. So now client have the IP address of this www.f5.com, and now it is initiating a connection with f5.com directly. Then you will get page from f5.com or like google.com or facebook.com or any server, or sorry, applications.
Now it
Okay.
will go to LTM. It will
Now
be
it
a
is, it may be okay. So I have one more slide where you have your queries cleared, that this LDNS can be your GTM. Okay. So one second, guys, bear with me. So okay, after all these iterative queries, okay, I'm just drawing that. Okay, sending it to .com. Okay, and again it is sending back to LDNS. Now LDNS going to
f5.com.
there's f5.com. So f5.com is sending here and it's sending back, and it now connecting to the f5.com.
So this all
www.f5.com.
queries are called iterative queries. So
Yeah, so that's why I've drawn this. So right, so client has queried to LDNS, which is called recursive query. Okay, and all these query initiated by LDNS to other root servers or other top level domain and other second level domain servers are known as iterative queries. Okay, so you can see easily see that why these queries are called iterative, because there are iterations, so many iterations, right? So many handshakes. Okay, fine, you are not having this. Okay, let me go to this. Iterations are there, right? And client is doing only one recursive query to the. So it's a headache of LDNS now to do all those heavy lifting on behalf of client. After getting an answer, it's just saying, okay, fine, I found you an answer, get this, and try to connect, right? So it can be asked in your interview that what is the difference between recursive query and iterative query. So iterative query are the queries initiated by LDNS or any DNS, which is your configured as a LDNS or next DNS, and client always do a query to a local DNS, which is called recursive query. Any questions so far? Again, if you can get this, all GTM concepts are very easy then. Okay,
this is very important.
this is very important. And now, and I see. So just ignore, other thing. As you can see, we have LDNS here, right? So you can have GTM as your LDNS as well, right? So GTM is doing the query. If it doesn't have any answer, it will do all kind of recursive iterative queries on behalf of client and provide you an IP address, and you can initiate connection to the F5. So that's why I was explaining earlier. It is not doing any kind of application load balancing or handling any applications. Only handles DNS traffic or DNS queries, right?
I have one question, Asif.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. At a time, GTM, how many connections can hold? I mean, like.
So it is a configurable thing. Okay. So you can pretty much set limits. Okay, like how many queries you want GTM to handle for a particular zone domain, right? So it is totally configurable object. Okay. So when we get into that, I will show you the limits, how to set limits for that. Suppose you want
Only
only
you can set a limit, so you can configure
limits, right? Limits, matrices, everything you can set there. Okay.
So we will cover metrics. So Asif, can you add Gautam? He's got disconnected. You will
One
be getting
second.
request.
Okay, I made you host. Okay.
You can add.
It all. Right.
So Anji, this all settings like DNS
So
depends. Like you need to ask the customer and you need to see your environment and then configure.
totally depends on your requirement, right? Ideally, you don't limit these things, but there is an option of doing that. That's why GTM is intelligent. That's why GTM is more preferable over other DNS, right? Because you can do these things. You cannot set limit on legacy DNS. Getting it?
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? So we are almost close to end of demo, but I have few more things to cover. So again, be vocal, ask. If you're not getting it, let us know. Okay.
Asif, I have one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Certification part.
Certification?
Yeah, GTM certification.
Okay. Yeah.
$185.
So the part, okay, fine. So which paper you want to do? Okay. Suppose you want to do GTM, so the code of the paper is 302. Okay, it's a 300 series. So for that, you have a prerequisite for with 201. So you have to clear 201 or LTM certification or APM ASM, right? So if you have cleared 101, 201, then you are eligible for appearing for GTM certification, that is 302.
Yeah, I cleared 201 as well.
Okay, right.
I'm planning to do 301. That's why, because recently I heard GTM model paper got changed.
No, GTM did not got changed
So
so far. So it will be your old platform. You can refer the blueprint. Every exam cost is 185 US dollars.
Earlier it was $130, but last October, okay, they have
Right. They did not change the syllabus. They changed syllabus for 101 and
201 only.
201, but they did not change any syllabus for GTM.
So can we get questions same examination point of view, whatever you are teaching
Yeah,
for
yeah,
the
yeah,
exam?
definitely.
We'll give you tips also. There are no
We
dumps.
can give you. There are
Why?
no dumps, right?
No, no, not dumb,
Because
sir.
dumps is nowhere
No, no, no.
available. But yeah, again, you just open the blueprint. Like you can just go through each.
Okay.
Like what is content, and you can ask questions. We can certainly
Okay.
right. So
Asif has
it
just
got a
cleared.
spark for me, but yeah, it was on the very last
Okay.
version which I have given earlier. So again,
Okay. Yeah.
for 201 you might have.
What
Yeah.
is not
So
clear with dashboard? Like,
that's why.
Asif, before
Yeah.
that, can you just tell them like how to integrate GTM with LTM? Like just, I think Sid was happening asking
Uh,
one question like how request will go to LTM.
okay, great.
You
Let
can
me.
just tell them records in this topic, two topics more.
Okay, right. So Sid, can you reiterate your question? Okay.
So,
Once again, like so that I can,
mhm.
explain.
Yeah, so I was saying that when the GTM is getting the query like DNS, so it is resolving it that query on its own, or is sending the request to LTM. Like I was
No,
saying that
okay.
LTM has the
Okay.
backend server and it is doing the load balancing,
Okay.
and yeah. But now I got your answer. I got it.
Okay.
When it,
You got it
yeah,
well
when
as
it
well.
will get the request, it will pass after
Yeah.
resolving the DNS. It will send that to LTM, and then LTM will do the load
Yeah.
balancing.
Right.
Exactly.
Got it.
But
Yeah.
real quick, I'll draw something.
Yeah.
Okay. Since you have asked this, so LTM. Sorry for the bad drawing, guys. Okay. So this is suppose data center one. Okay. You have one GTM. Suppose a dedicated GTM, fine, and two LTMs in HA, right? So on LTMs, you have VIPs configured. Suppose 10.10.10.10.1 colon 80. Same will be here also, right? And this we have pool, and pool numbers are like 172.16.1.10 and on port 80, and suppose 1.20 on port 80, right? So obviously this WIP is doing load balancing for these two pool, right, members. Now on GTM, so this WIP is for application suppose facebook.com, okay, and so these backend server hosting facebook.com. So now on GTM you have configured a wide IP, okay. On wide IP you can, wide IP is basically uh, doing a GSLB kind of thing. So we will talk about that, but just for your like sake of your query, I'm saying that fb.com has a C name or alias name. Those are the records I will tell you guys, so don't like panic. So www dot suppose fb dot, or you can say WIP. Once again, www dot wip.fb.com. Okay. So one more thing. When you try to hit this fb.com, okay, so it will go to where? LDNS, right? As I've shown you earlier. Okay.
Yeah.
So on so if your GTM is LDNS, then it will come here only. So I'm not we are not having GTM as a LDNS. So suppose there is some other DNS, okay, and we have delegated some zone to GTM. So this fb.com, okay, has an entry for with this IP or CNAME, alias name we call it, okay. So when you hit www.fb.com, it will come to the LDNS. LDNS will see, okay, I have an alias name record, and this alias name record is wide IP configured on GTM. And this wide IP has pool, which is having a member 10.10.10.1.80. Okay, what is this? This is your VIP IP, right? So now GTM will give client IP of VIP. Okay, now client will initiate connection with VIP directly, and then it can, you know, have those web pages available for you.
Okay, got it.
Okay, but again, I have, you know, like added wide IP. I'm sorry because, you know, like it was I was in the flow, so that's why. But okay, wide IP we will discuss later. But I think you get the idea, right?
Yeah, yeah, I got the idea. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any question or any doubt, guys, regarding like how resolution happens?
You can just tell them the records. Someone was asking about.
Yeah, yeah, records. Yeah. So on this topic, anyone has any question?